Assalamu alaikum. It's really a pleasure to sit in front of you. I am personally a voter of PTI and I'll be ever. My question is regarding Afghanistan. It's been after 2-decade-long war of US against Afghanistan. Taliban have turned to power now, which wasn't supported by leftists in Pakistan because they saw them as a source of terrorism. Now, we Pakistanis are again facing a wave of terrorism and Islamabad is on high alert. So how do you see the Taliban in Afghanistan, and how do you think that the current security threat which Pakistan is facing now has something to do with Afghan Taliban also? Also, you have supported a lot of laws like blasphemy law and religion-based laws, but on the same time you have criticized a lot of religious parties which were in the coalition. So how do you see the role of religion in the politics? Thank you so much.
Okay, so first of all, you must differentiate between the Afghan Taliban and the Pakistan Taliban. The Afghan Taliban are completely different. Their aims and objectives are completely different to the TTP, which is the Pakistan Taliban. Who were the Pakistan Taliban? When the Afghan Jihad was conducted from the soil of Pakistan, it was conducted to what was called the tribal areas of Pakistan, or FATA. Now, these were areas adjoining the Afghan border. And all the sort of incursions into Afghanistan by the Mujahideen were from the tribal area. And a lot of the fighters also from Pakistan were from the tribal areas. And there were Pashtuns, which were the Pakistani. You must remember, Afghanistan is 50% Pashtun, and 2/3 of Pashtun live in Pakistan, and most of them along the border, the eastern border of Afghanistan. So therefore, there was a lot of Pashtun sympathy for the Afghan Jihad. So hence, from the tribal area, the border adjoining Afghanistan, that's where the fighters used to go in, and the Mujahideen used to operate. So when come 9/11, Afghanistan gets invaded by the Americans. Now Pakistan government took this stand, which I opposed. We should have stayed neutral. They started supporting the US war on terror. And so the same people who had been fighting jihad against the Soviets because they were foreign invaders now were told that because it's the US, if you fight against them, it's terrorism. So they turned against the Pakistan government. And so what we had was in tribal areas, the people turning against the Pakistan government, and they were called the TTP, the Pakistan Taliban. And so there were two different things. Afghanistan Taliban were not connected with them. I mean, they were connected vaguely, but not really. There was not real connection with them. So what happened was that after Kabul fell to the Taliban last August, the Pakistan Taliban were then asked by the Afghan Taliban to go back into Pakistan. And unfortunately, that was a great time for us my government was already negotiating with them so that we would do a resettlement of these people, because there were about 40,000 people which were moving into Pakistan, amongst them about 5,000 to 10,000 fighters, but their families too. So unfortunately, when my government went, the eye was taken off the ball, and the new government and the setup, the military establishment did not pay enough attention to what was happening with the resettlement of the Taliban coming in. And so therefore we have this wave of terrorism coming in now, and this is all along what was the former FATA, the former tribal areas, because they've got merged into Pakistan. So we have a wave of terrorism in Pakistan right now, and this needs to be dealt with before it goes out of hand. Now I come to you, what you're talking about, religious parties and religious laws. Look, let me first tell you about the blasphemy law. The blasphemy law was not made by Pakistan. It was made by the British when they were ruling India. And the idea of the blasphemy law was that if one religious community, and remember there were multi-religious communities living in villages. There were Hindus, there were Sikhs, there were Muslims. there were Christians. So if one religious community said something which was derogatory against another religious community of a sacred entity, so there would be riots, there would be a lot of people killed. So the British then brought in this blasphemy law that you were not allowed to say anything derogatory about any religious entity of any other religion. That's how it came about, to stop riots. So therefore, rather than there being lynching crowds and lynching mobs going on and killing people, say, who thought that their religion blasphemy had been committed against them, now it was an offense, so you had to actually go to court to prove that. So that was to stop mob violence, lynching crowds. So Pakistan basically inherited the policy. And in Pakistan, it makes sense because we have different religions here. And we have had in the past, when someone thinks that our religion has been blasphemed, there've been mob violence. There've been people lynched. And this now is an offense in Pakistan because you have to prove that it's blasphemy. And for that, you have to go to a court.
Very well. Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next question is about Turkey. And we have with us Dr. Yasin Aktay. Dr. Aktay is a professor at Bayezid Yildirim University, and also he is a former member of parliament and widely known here in Turkey. Dr. Aktay.
First of all, thank you very much for sharing your very, very valuable perspective with us, and thank to SIGA for gathering us together in this platform. For the past 2 decades, Turkey has become an important and rising power, not only in its region, but also in the Muslim world. I think you can share this idea, this view. The relationship between Pakistan and Turkey is the lasting legacy of Pan-Islamism. The story is well known, as you know. Muslims in the subcontinent supported the Turkish people with their bodies and wealth during the height of colonialism. But in reality today, the Turkish-Pakistan relationship is a failure from many angles. The historical nostalgia has been manipulated by NATO interests, as it was dominated and controlled by the military through the Cold War years. Today, it has resulted in nothing tangible. No visa-free travel, no free trade agreement, no military alliance, no free technology transfer agreement, no people-to-people cooperation, etc. Now my question is coming. Do you feel Pakistan has benefited from Turkey's rise? And if so, how? And do you envision a strategic partnership beyond rhetoric between the two important Muslim states? And lastly, what other Muslim states do you see as strategic partners to Pakistan? Thank you.
Well, first of all, let me say that there's a people-to-people relationship between the people of Turkey and Pakistan. And this, again, what you quite rightly pointed out in history, was at a time when in Turkey, the Western powers or European powers were about to take over in the 20s or late 1919s and 1920. At the time, we were fighting. A lot of the Muslims of India and what is now Pakistan collected a lot of money, and they gave. They were standing with the people of Turkey, and I think that's what is remembered in the Turkish mindset. So the relationship is very deep. When I became the Prime Minister, with President Erdogan, I had a very good relationship, and we were trying our best to further our contacts. I was only in power for 3.5 years. And in that time, unfortunately, Corona came in. The 2 years were basically 1.5 years were lost in the coronavirus. And so for our first year, we had a bankrupt country, so we were trying to be solvent. So basically in the last couple of years, we were trying to form what you call trade relationship. We had a committee formed by the president dealing with the committee formed by me in Pakistan to further our contacts, our relationship. It was quite a relationship which covered a wide area of things. And unfortunately that, when my government was removed, we were just deepening our relationship, and there were various political crises which kept coming on the way. And but I do feel that for the future, the relationship with Pakistan and Turkey will grow. Look, Pakistan has gone through a bad period in the last 30 years. We have, we lost our momentum of growth. Pakistan just did not live up to its economic potential. We had two terrible governments of two political families who ruled us for 30 years. And they're still here. They've been in power for 8 months. And they have basically run this country into the ground. So Pakistan in the 60s was one of the fastest growing economies in the world. And especially in the developing world, Pakistan was given as an example. A lot of countries followed Pakistan's model in the 60s, Malaysia, South Korea. We were considered a model. And as I said, unfortunately, in the last 3 decades, we lost that momentum because, we had very poor governance. So looking ahead, I think Pakistan and Turkish relationship has tremendous potential. And we were discussing, there were a lot of mutual areas which we could benefit each other, because there's a lot of strengths in Pakistan which are still, we have potential, but we haven't realized them. But in Turkey, we were working out on how mutually we could benefit each other through trade.
Thank you very much. I can't leave this without mentioning that you and President Erdogan, and I believe also the President of Iran, were talking about how to confront Islamophobia. Say, in 1 minute, what project do you think the 3 countries should embark upon to confront this rising problem of Islamophobia?
You see, Islamophobia, let me just give you I'm just going to be very quick about this. This all started when the Iranian Revolution took place. There was a fear in the Western countries that all Muslim countries will be taken over by Islamic revolutions. And so they divided the Muslim world between moderates and fundamentalists. And in 1989, when Salman Rushdie, or sometime then when Salman Rushdie wrote that book, Satanic Verses, there was a wave of anger in the Muslim countries. The West could not understand why were the Muslims so upset, because they, especially Europeans, their idea of religion or the way they treat, for instance, Jesus Christ, is completely different to the way Muslims love and respect and revere our Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And they couldn't understand this. And the Muslim world never explained to them why were they so upset. And so that added to this suspicion about Islam. And then, of course, 9/11 took place. So after that, Islam was equated with terrorism. For somehow, suicide attacks were only by Muslims, because we were supposed to be these radical people. And unfortunately, the worst role was played by the heads of Muslim states. Everyone, rather than trying to explain to the Western countries that, look, radicals, moderates, and liberals are in every human community. There is no such thing as radical Islam or Islamic terrorism. These were terms given to create the impression that somehow terrorism and radicalism was connected with Islam. And the Muslim heads of state were so keen to become all moderates and liberals just to please the Western countries, they never explained to them that there is only one Islam, and that is of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And unfortunately, we never ever helped fight Islamophobia. We by never explaining anything to them. So Muslims in Western countries suffered a lot after 9/11 because, as I said, Islam was equated to terrorism. And there was this radical Islam. Muslims kept saying we're all against radical Islam. But how was the man in the West ever supposed to understand the difference between moderate and liberal Islam? So they thought of all of Muslims as sub-terrorists. So now what needs to be done is that OIC must take the premier role in this to explain to Western countries. They must form a body of scholars which will be able to speak to the Western countries in their own language. So to make them understand, the differences, what causes problems between and what causes Islamophobia. And I feel that can be done. And I also feel that, Al Jazeera, TRT, channels that can sort of give the Islamic version to the Western countries are very important. They need to have material which will explain to the Western countries about Islam. Majority of the people in the West do not understand Islam. And the problem is that it can be manipulated by those people who are anti-Islam. So they can manipulate this ignorance against us. And that's why it is very important communication through media, and OIC should take responsibility for this.